Okay, we're here with Will Ahmed, the founder and CEO of Whoop. Appreciate you being here. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me, Brett.
Now, Whoop is a next generation wearable technology for optimizing health, human performance. What does that mean exactly? Tell us about Whoop.
Well, we really believe if you can continuously measure the human body, you can uncover insights that you otherwise wouldn't know that will improve your health or improve your performance. I got into this space personally because I was always into sports and exercise growing up. I was captain of the Harvard squash team, college athlete, trained all the time. I was someone who used to overtrain, which I imagine some of your listeners can sympathize with.
Mm.
And it just felt like a great mystery to me. Like, when was I getting fitter? When was I run down? When did I need more rest? When should I push harder? My approach to training was kind of like more is more. And and so I used to overtrain. I mean, other athletes might undertrain. They might get injured. They might misinterpret fitness peaks. And the simple question I had as a 20-year-old was, well, what could you measure about the body to better understand performance and to dial in training and to peak on a given day? And, things that I thought were fairly straightforward questions, I really wasn't getting good answers to. And so I started doing physiology research as a student. I read about 500 medical papers while I was in school. I wrote a paper myself around measuring the human body. And that, 4-year sort of exploration as an undergrad led to founding Whoop my senior year. And It was, looking back on it, it's a pretty crazy thing to do as a 20-year-old, was to start a company. But I felt in some ways like I didn't have a choice. Like, it was just the thing I was thinking about all the time. And I was kind of on a mission to build this technology.
Yeah, this is it here now. This is part of the genesis of the exploration that started in your dorm room, I guess. And I've seen, pictures of you back then, and you just kind of like, you got stuff all over the place. It looks wild,
Sure.
but how did it go from like a concept of, thinking about the things that you wanted to measure to actually putting it together to have something that sits on your wrist like this?
Well, we were initially focused on replacing 3 types of existing technology.
Mm.
The first was the PSG machine, which was really the gold standard for sleep monitoring. The second was the heart rate monitor, the chest strap, which, was really pretty good at measuring heart rate, particularly during exercise.
Right.
And the third was the electrocardiogram machine, which was good at measuring heart rate variability. And the thinking is, or was, I should say, okay, if we can replace those 3 machines, we're going to have a great proxy for sleep, strain, and recovery, which, of course, if you're familiar with Whoop, you'll know are the 3 kind of core pillars to the product experience. And the first step was realizing those were the things we wanted to measure. The second step was realizing we're going to focus on those things. We're not going to do a bunch of other stuff. And then it became a very rigorous hardware engineering algorithms investigation, an investigation that honestly took years. I mean, I've been building this company, Brett, for 12 years, and it probably took 5, 6, 7 years for us to really complete the core technology that someone experiences today. I mean, the product's certainly gotten a lot better even since then, but it was a years-long project to get this technology to the place where it could be really small and really accurate and really give that value to the end user.
Yeah, I loved your explanation of some of the things you left off or leave out of the technology, the wearable technology at least. And a lot of people expect it to do certain things based on the face, but you kind of had a really good explanation that I heard just recently. Can you go over that of like why you decided to leave certain things off this thing?
At the end of the day, our core focus is to deliver really accurate health monitoring.
Right.
And when you start talking about, for example, adding a screen to your product.
Yeah.
So for those unfamiliar or just listening, Whoop is really mostly material. It doesn't have a screen on it. And it's really solely focused on measuring your body, measuring your health. A common question we get asked is, well, why doesn't it have a screen? I'd really like a screen so I don't have to wear a watch. And well, once you put a screen on the product, then it is a watch. And then in turn, someone's not going to feel comfortable wearing something else on their wrist, which would be a watch. So now you're competing with all the watches. And along the way of adding a watch interface, you're now going to have these additional things that you think you're going to need to add. So shouldn't it show heart rate? Well, yeah, I suppose it should, because, now that you've got the screen, you should show some of the data. Okay, well, shouldn't it also show your strain? Or shouldn't it tell you the distance? Or shouldn't it give you maybe additional functionality on your phone, like when someone's calling you, or an email, because, now you've got this face. And so what happens is, with very good intentions, you start adding all these little pieces of functionality.
Yeah.
And each one of those decisions around screen, yes, time, yes, heart rate, yes, push notifications, yes, like each one of those gets easy to make. But you wake up one day and you realize you're building a smartwatch. You're not building the world's best health monitor. And if we'd gone down that rabbit hole, we probably would have gotten killed by Apple. And instead, we've been able to focus really on our core essence, which is around super accurate, high data resolution health monitoring. And as a consequence, really be the best game in town for that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. One of the things that you monitor is HRV. Tell me exactly what that is so that I can understand it better myself.
Heart rate variability is literally a measurement of the time between successive beats of the heart. So if your heart is beating at 60 beats per minute, which would be every second, it's actually not beating every second. It's a bit counterintuitive, but your heart would be beating at, say, 0.9 seconds, and then 1.1 seconds, and then 0.7 seconds, and then 1.3 seconds, and so forth. And it turns out that the variability of the time between your successive beats is a sign that your body is actually in good health, or recovered, or relaxed. And as a consequence, the opposite, which would be a lower heart rate variability, so therefore less variability in this time between beats, that would be a sign that your body may be more run down, or more stressed, or in a more sympathetic dominant state. And this measurement is highly sensitive, as you can tell from my description, because in any given moment, our brain might be signaling to our body that it needs to change its state of being. And that in turn is going to affect your heart rate variability. But what's really powerful about heart rate variability is if you measure it in a control every single day, a control being the same period of time or under the same circumstances, you can start to create a baseline for what an individual's state is. And really, it's this lens all of a sudden into your autonomic nervous system. And what Whoop does is we measure heart rate variability all the time, but in particular, we measure it during the last 5 minutes of your slow wave sleep. Now, slow wave sleep is when your body is producing 95% of its human growth hormone. It's a deeply important recovery period for your body. And so by measuring your heart rate variability, which is this very sensitive metric which understands the state, during this period of time that your body is meant to be restoring itself, we actually have a fascinating and actionable lens into your body's recovery. And it's worth noting that this measurement's highly personal. It's measured in milliseconds, and people may have a measurement anywhere from 20 to 250, and generally higher is better. But it's also a very personal metric in the sense that it's one that you want to try to increase from whatever your baseline is. Some of it's genetics, some of it's fitness, and then a lot of it is also just the state of your being. So if you're sick, if you're hungover, if you're overtrained, like if you're really stressed, all of those things will lower your heart rate variability. And in turn, Whoop will give you a lower recovery score on Whoop. So a lot of the way this manifests is in a recovery score from 0 to 100%, red, yellow, green. How prepared are you to take on the day?
Yeah, I love that aspect of the data because I wake up and it's so accurate. It's kind of scary how accurate it is, especially on the sleep side. Like I'm wearing this at night. It's tiny, it's very light, and then I wake up and it gives me the most accurate data that I've ever seen in my sleep, and it's detailed and I think to myself, how does it do that? Like it freaks me out how accurate it is. How does it actually get my sleep patterns when I wake up, when I'm dreaming, when I'm in a deep cycle, when I'm light? Like I just don't understand how it does it.
Well, again, it took years of data collection and algorithm development from some of the very best data scientists in the world. And I think the equally remarkable thing is just that your body knows. Like Whoop is measuring signals in your body, and often those are signals that you may feel yourself, but often they might be signals you couldn't feel at all. I mean, if you go back to my sort of founding story of Whoop, I overtrained because I couldn't feel what I was doing to my body. If I knew my body was run down, I wouldn't have kept going, right? Take an example like COVID-19. I mean, one of the core issues with that whole pandemic and sort of some of the craziness around it was people didn't actually know if they were sick or not. You could be carrying this virus and not feel you were sick. Well, it turned out that Whoop could actually measure things in your body that signaled you were sick. So we would measure that people had an elevated respiratory rate, which is the number of breaths that you have in a minute while you're sleeping. And it's normally a very flat statistic, but it turned out when people got COVID, it would spike really high. And sometimes it would spike without you feeling any symptoms. And so it was just another example of being able to measure something in your body that you couldn't feel. A more dramatic example of this is we increasingly get messages from Whoop members, subject, Whoop saved my life. And it's because something showed up in their data that was so strange and so hard to explain or so out of the usual that they found themselves going to a doctor's office. And next thing you know, they're having a heart attack or they're having a stroke or they've got Lyme disease and they couldn't, they didn't know why they weren't feeling. So it's pretty amazing just that your body has these signals, and it's such a unique moment in the history of humanity that we can actually measure them.
That's got to feel good, doesn't it? Like, I guess when you first had this idea of, creating something that helped with understanding overtraining and training aspects, and then it goes all the way to somebody saying, "Hey, this thing saved my life." That's got to be a pretty good feeling.
Yeah, look, it's surreal and inspiring and motivating, and then also, it kind of cranks up the responsibility that you feel in building this technology. Like, okay, we've got a job to do. Like, we really need to get this in more people's hands. We need to keep pushing the innovation. What's clear is that continuous health monitoring over time will be able to prevent and predict a number of disease states and cardiovascular issues and fill in the blank. And I think that's what's so exciting about being able to build this technology at this moment in time. And certainly building this company, building this technology has been really hard. I mean, it's been excruciatingly painful at times. And so having these messages of people, being deeply impacted by the technologies, it's incredibly motivating to fall back on and to help kind of push through the challenges that you might be facing.
Yeah, I just came from the U.S. Olympic trials, Will, where there was over 1,000 athletes competing for ultimately 50 spots on the U.S. national team. In terms of high performance like that, I know you've got people like Michael Phelps who are involved with Whoop, who are believers in Whoop. When you look at it from that top end, that aspect of where they're trying to find hundreds of seconds and get that ultimate performance that separates them from being a great swimmer to an Olympic swimmer, where do you see the technology being useful?
Well, Whoop is a tool, and we can't swim the race for Michael Phelps. Like
Right.
that's his job, and he's the best at it. But what we can do is help someone like Michael, who's already at that 1% of 1%, figure out what are the things that they can dial in to increase their likelihood that they give their very best performance. And sleep and recovery are really low-hanging fruit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're a serious athlete and you don't measure sleep and recovery, there's just no question in my mind you're leaving gains on the field. Like, you should measure that. There's a lot of things that once you measure it, you can do to manage about it. And sleep and recovery are really shown to correlate very closely with performance. You'll be able to train harder if you can optimize your sleep and recovery. And certainly on the day of the Olympic trials or the day of a gold medal race, like, you want to know that you did everything you possibly could to be prepped for that moment. So Whoop is good, I think, at creating these baselines for people. Let's take sleep, for example. You might ask an athlete, okay, how'd you sleep last night? And if they don't measure their sleep, they'll say, okay, well, I went to bed at 11. I woke up at 6. I got 7 hours of sleep. Pretty good. I feel pretty good. Okay, well, let's take that person who got 7 hours in bed. Mind you, it wasn't 7 hours of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
The 7 hours they spent in bed is going to consist of time awake, time in light sleep, time in slow wave sleep, and time in REM sleep. Now, as you know, Brett, awake and light, they don't actually do all that much for you physiologically. That's not super productive time that your body is recovering. However, slow wave sleep and REM sleep, those are deeply important stages of sleep for your body. Slow wave sleep is when you produce about 95% of your human growth hormone. So, athletes think they're getting stronger in the pool or in the gym. That's where you break your muscles down, right? You get stronger when you rebuild them. And then REM sleep, that's when your mind is repairing itself cognitively. So all of us as humans want to, have high cognitive function. Getting more REM sleep will deliver that. That's also when you're experiencing dreams. So if an athlete isn't dreaming at night or can't remember their dreams, that might be a sign they're not getting enough REM sleep. So anyway, let's go back to the person who spent 7 hours in bed.
Mm-hmm.
That person may have spent a total of 30 minutes in both REM and slow wave sleep. On the flip side, that person may have spent 5.5 hours of REM and slow wave sleep. Now, not knowing anything else about two somewhat similar swimmers, the guy who got 5.5 hours is going to crush the guy who got 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, but there's an ocean in between those two numbers. being an athlete and going from getting 2 hours to 3 hours a night of restorative sleep, or going from 3 to 4, those are big leaps in performance gains, because your body is just going to feel so much better, and it's going to be so much more resilient. So then the question becomes, well, okay, my baseline, Brett, is 3 hours. If I spend 7 hours in bed, I'm going to get 3 hours of restorative sleep. Okay, well, let's figure out what we can tweak to get that 3 to 4, right? And that's where suddenly sleep supplements comes into play. Your routine before bed, the conversation you have or don't have with your partner, mindfulness, your phone, how dark your bedroom is, how cold it is, like air quality, all of these things start to affect your sleep. And what I've found with all the work I've done with professional athletes, and I think all the work Whoop has done with professional athletes, is there's an enormous gravitation of energy to the period of time that someone's competing or exercising. And what gets lost or doesn't get the amount of time it deserves is the other 20 hours of the day. And a lot happens in those 20 hours. And if you can figure out how to optimize those 20 hours, it's going to make the performance that much better.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. And that's how swimmers and coaches can utilize this technology to help. When I think of health and human performance, I also think of a big aspect of performance for sure is nutrition. Is there any, is your team looking at ways that you can incorporate nutrition into the technology?
It's a great question. So today, there's a Whoop journal that allows you to track if you're on a different diet or not. It allows you to track different supplements you might be taking, medications you might be taking, sleep supplements before bed, caffeine, alcohol. These are all different things that an athlete on Whoop could be measuring and tracking. And so what Whoop will then do is it'll say, okay, on days where you drank caffeine versus didn't, this is how you recovered, or this is how you slept.
Right.
On days you drank alcohol, this is how it affected your recovery. So it can really spell those things out. Now, over time, you'll see Whoop moving more into the nutrition space and adding more capabilities for nutrition tracking.
Yeah, I was going to say that, in terms of looking 5 years down the road, I know that's what you're doing as a company now. Where do you see it going? Especially maybe within the next 12 months, are there any new innovations that you're excited about that you're working on currently?
Yeah, there's one technology that we've been continuing to enhance that I think is relevant to your audience, and it's around strength training and weightlifting and the notion of muscular load. There's a big focus in the wearable space on measuring heart rate, which is really valuable. But Whoop is actually the first wearable to also look at your muscular load. And we acquired a company 2 years ago that had really developed very sophisticated algorithms to understand your body during different types of activities and during weightlifting, and understanding how that weight and the velocity at which you were lifting that weight was impacting your muscles. And so we've spent the last 2 years building out this infrastructure in the app where now you can really very accurately track and measure the impact of a weightlifting session. And so if you're someone who does weightlifting and you've got different routines, you can now store all of those on Whoop. And when you do them, you'll get additional credit towards your strain score, which will give you a breakdown on how much of your strain was cardiovascular versus how much was it muscular.
Oh, wow. That's really good information.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine that I worked for last year is now your chief growth officer, Ed Baker. And one of the things that Ed would always say to me is, don't just bring me problems, bring me solutions. So throwing it back onto Ed, what solutions is he bringing you as a team these days?
Well, it's terrific. And also a pretty talented amateur athlete in his own right. But
Yeah.
you know, I think Ed is really gifted at understanding what are levers that we can apply, that some of which may be seemingly small bits of work, but that can actually have a huge impact for your business. Growth as a category ends up really focusing on different initiatives that can unlock your business. And some of those are small shifts in the way that you communicate to your members, or you allow your members to buy your product, or the way that you allow them to renew and experience the overall membership. And Ed has really wrapped his hands around Whoop broadly, and it's contributed to a lot of our growth as a business over the last 2 years. But it's also helping us expand internationally, where he's got a lot of experience too. So it's been really awesome working with him. We've been friends for 5 years now, and having him on the team's awesome.
He's a good man, really smart and hard worker, sharp. You mentioned internationally. Where are you not right now that you'd love to be?
Well, we just launched 20 new markets. So Whoop is available in about 60 countries around the world.
Wow.
And in the last 8 weeks, we've launched markets like India, Brazil, Mexico, Singapore, Japan, South Korea, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Hong Kong. So really big markets, and markets that we think we have a lot of growth potential. And I would say right now we're certainly in the markets that we want to be in.
Yeah. What about in terms of program? I'm thinking this is from the coaching side.
Yeah.
I did see something recently where you had incorporated some AI that would give suggested workouts. But beyond that, in terms of, specific coaches, let's say, is there something in the future where coaches could come in, put their programs in, people could access their specific programs, or is it all going to be AI based?
Yeah, we really want to balance human coaching and AI coaching, and we want to enable both. Many of our top athletes, or really up and coming athletes, they're always going to have a coach or a trainer who they're close to. And for Whoop, it's really about facilitating that relationship. Having easy exchange of data. Like, you can create teams on Whoop, and you can have your coach or your trainer now see your data, and you can share as much data as you want with that person. You can now have a coach or a trainer input a workout for you and send it to you on Whoop, and then on Whoop you can then do it. And then in turn they can see what you did. So like that bridge is getting stronger, but I want to emphasize that it's a bridge we care a lot about, and it's enabling athletes and coaches to work together and to collaborate. And again, Whoop is a tool to facilitate that. If you're run down, how you approach being run down may depend on your goals and what you're doing with your coach, right? If Whoop doesn't know what your goals are, it may assume, okay, because you're run down, this might be a day to dial it back. But maybe the goal is to overtrain for a short period of time because you're in the off season, or you don't have a race for a long time. So that's where the coach comes in, and we want to facilitate that relationship.
Yeah. What about sorry.
I was just going to say, the AI piece of things we view as a very broad market opportunity, and some of our best athletes may use it, but we also see it being a tool for your everyday weekend warrior, fitness enthusiast, executive on Whoop, like people who want to get healthier, get fitter, and they need some information. Maybe they need a little kick in the pants. Like, this is going to be a tool where you can ask the coach every day, hey, what workout should I do today? Or why didn't I sleep well? Or am I getting sick? Like, do I sleep better in the summer or the winter? And these are the types of questions that Whoop can now answer for you in a very personalized way.
Is that something they would go on to the app and kind of type those questions in? Is that the way you see it?
Yeah, today you can actually do it, where you can go into the Whoop app and you can type a question like that.
Nice. Now, in terms of the swimming side of things, what technology is available for swimmers to be able to use this continuously while they train, or specifically in different parts of their body? Is it just on the wrist, or have you figured out other ways to wear it?
Yeah, it's a great question. We've done a few things for swimmers. So the first is that we've developed 2 different bands and an accessory that makes swimming with Whoop easier and more comfortable. And that's if you want to wear it on your wrist. So we have both a Hydro Knit and a Sport Flex band, which are 2 different types of Whoop bands that, again, for people who are listening to this and who might not be familiar with Whoop, like you can swap the bands in and out. So, the thing is mostly a sensor, and you can very easily interchange the band with another band. And so here you're just left with that sensor. Now, what's powerful about this sensor is you can also put it in different locations on the body if you use Whoop garments. And so to your question, in partnership with Tier, the swimsuit brand, we actually have developed a swimsuit that allows you to put this inside the swimsuit.
Wow.
So that's another capability that we've developed exclusively for swimmers.
Wow, that's really cool. Now, are they able to wear this technology while they compete now, like a triathlon and swimming competitions? Do you know anything about that aspect?
I think that it depends a little bit on the governing body and the sport. So I know, for example, that Olympic track and field athletes will be able to wear Whoop when they're competing. I think it may be more challenging in an Olympic trials event or swimming event, so to speak. But this is where it varies by sport. And we've really tried to facilitate the sensor being able to be worn in different locations to accommodate for that. Whoop was the first wearable approved to be worn in Major League Baseball. Like, if you're an NFL fan, like Patrick Mahomes is wearing Whoop on his bicep every single game, wore it in the Super Bowl.
Wow.
A lot of athletes will wear it in their boxers. So, sports like tennis and squash and, rugby and wrestling, some sports where maybe having it on your wrist isn't ideal. So we've tried to facilitate the data collection for our members to be as seamless as possible. And we're going to continue working with governing bodies of sports in general to make sure that the product can be worn during competition.
Yeah. Couple of questions for you. Are you headed to Paris? Are you going to watch the Olympics?
I believe I'm going to go. I'm still, I'm just with work, there's always a few balls in the air, but I'd like to go. Are you planning to go?
I'm not. I'm just going to be home watching and doing a live podcast of the swimming. Like I said, I just did 9 days at the trials, and that was exhausting. It's a long one. I've been to 5 Olympics myself as a coach and swimmer, so I've had the experience. But yeah, I think just watching at home like everybody else will be pretty cool.
For sure.
Yeah. Now, what about the Whoop itself? Like, how do you personally use it now? I mean, you've been wearing it now for many years. What do you still get out of it?
Well, I think that I am probably optimizing still to be more of a CEO than as a human. And And it's worth being honest with yourself about that. So, one category that I love using Whoop for is travel. I travel a lot. And, they can be tough trips where you're doing 4 countries in, 8 days, 7
Yeah.
days. And it's different time zones, and it's jet lag, and it's early mornings or later nights. Like, what can I do to feel my best during that? And in some cases, like, being yellow is a win. And it's sort of from a recovery standpoint. So that's one whole category of use that I've gotten from the product. And I will say that I think the nature of being a competitive athlete growing up or being an entrepreneur is that you are hard charging by nature. Like, I am hard charging by nature. I have a bit of a mindset of more is more. And so having a technology on my body 24/7 that's giving me a check-in and, giving you permission at times to dial it back, or saying you need to dial it back, or you actually need more rest. It's a very powerful reminder for someone like me. And as a consequence, it's helped me take sleep much more seriously. And to the earlier conversation about the 7 hours in bed, I've gotten pretty good at making sure whatever time I spend in bed is going to be high efficiency, high quality sleep.
Right.
I think it's certainly helped me dial in my diet and, cut back very meaningfully on alcohol. I think as an executive, it's kind of easy to find yourself in all these different events or cocktails this or dinner that and whatever. And, you just realize, okay, if you have 2 drinks at that thing, that's going to have a toll on your body the next day. And when you actually look at the data, it's just not worth it. Right.
Yeah.
And sort of it helps you kind of pick your spots for when you really want to celebrate versus when you should just be, kind of drinking water. And I think stress is another area that Whoop is pretty dialed at. Being able to measure my stress over the course of a day or a week and kind of have a sense if I'm feeling more stressed than usual or how I'm managing it. I've been a long time meditator now. So for the last 10 years, I've had a daily meditation practice. It's been a massive unlock in my life. I think not just as a CEO, but also as a husband and a son and a friend and these sort of other hats that we wear. I think it's just made me a better human.
Yeah.
So all of those things tie back to having this tool, which is a constant check-in point on my body.
And that's what I love about Whoop. It's really for everybody. You just talked about it working for you personally as a CEO, as a businessman. I'm talking about it as a coach and an athlete, at the highest level, at the general level. So that's what I love about Whoop. It's just for everybody. And so it really can change your life in terms of the information it can give you for anybody. So yeah, it's not a specialized piece of equipment just for one particular niche or market. It's for everybody. So where can people find it? How do they get it?
Yeah, so you can join Whoop just at whoop.com. We actually have a promotion now where you can sign up actually for free, try the product for free for 30 days. And if you don't like it, you just send it back, no questions asked. And that's that. If you do like it, it's about $20 a month. Hardware is included. And Whoop will continue to be adding new software features and insights alongside your membership. Just in the past year, we've added a whole new strength training feature, a whole new stress monitor feature, a number of women's health features, an AI coach capability, and more. So, it's just it's a drum beat that comes with being a member. And again, that's just at whoop.com.
Love it. Well, I appreciate your time and your insights. Thanks for sharing. It's changed my life. I use it every day, and I hope other people do too. So I appreciate your time here.
Oh, thank you, Brett. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me.
All right. Take care.
All right. See you, man.